Welcome to the Awaken the Awesome podcast with your host, Olivier Day. This is Awaken the Awesome, a podcast where we acknowledge that we are all in this together. Through enlightening conversations and personal insights, we like to engage with individuals just like you who show us how they are bringing a little bit of awesomeness along their individual journeys. Our hope is to inspire you to always keep pushing and to stay awesome along the way. Do you truly know the price of success? I want you to take a second to ponder on that one. You don't have to give me an answer, but I do expect you to at the very least think about it as we welcome my next guest who, as you'll soon get to hear, has in more ways than one not only paid the price, but eventually, after some soul-searching and eventual clarity, decided to say enough and call it a day. As a producer, songwriter, keyboard virtuoso, and well-rounded musical talent, Karlo Vieux is a founding member of the iconic chart-topping Haitian Kompa band CARIMI, who, along with fellow founders and bandmates Richard Cavé and Michael Guirand, burst onto the scene with a fresh, innovative sound that shook the airwaves to their core. Whether you were a seasoned or passive Kompa listener back in the day, you had to admit it. There was a new player in town. With Karlo having penned and produced many of the group's generation-defining hits such as Moins Sous, Chagrin Criminel, and of course, Haiti Bang Bang, CARIMI set itself on a 15-year journey that saw the group rise from young upstarts to an obvious force to be reckoned with. But behind the accolades, recognition, awards, praise, fame, fortune, we as fans often lose sight of the fact that these are people who, as such, and like us, are in no way immune from the trials and tribulations of life. Seeing your dream come true as a result of your incredible efforts, impressive talent, relentless commitment, and often understated sacrifice is certainly an achievement to be acknowledged. But when you realize that the price tag may amount to more than you're admittedly willing to pay, you have a choice to make. In this generously transparent account, Karlo, having long since moved on, pulls no punches as we get a first-hand account into his incredible journey, chronicling how his relentless work ethic, undeniable talent, and willingness to lay it all out on the line eventually led to some career-defining moments, but also some pretty heart-wrenching ones. Through his own words, we get to meet the man, the husband, the father, the entrepreneur, the stoic warrior, as he gives us his perspective on enjoying a hobby versus running a business, the traps of the industry, the toll of fame on friends and family, listening to your heart, and so much more. Another exciting conversation, which I do hope you'll enjoy. So let's get into this. Awaken the Awesome, episode 134 with Karlo Vieux. Here we go. So, right off the bat, as I always like to tell all my guests, it's both a privilege and a thrill. But for me specifically, Karlo, it's really important for me to hold space. And first of all, to thank you for your gracious time and availability for this call. It's a real big honor, not just from the perspective of a fan, but also from the fact that, as a father, as someone who really enjoys, looking at people's, journey of growth and success. And that's why I also want to have you on to the podcast, because it's really important for us, first of all, to, acknowledge the work that people put in. And as I like to tell all the listeners, it's important for people to recognize people just like you, whether you're a superstar or whatever, you need to understand that at the bottom line, there's a human being on the other end who sacrificed just as much as you did, just, who put in the work just as much as you did, and who basically had a dream and went for it and put in all that dedication, all that blood, sweat, and equity, who made the sacrifices. And that is not a short-changed thing. And you need to be acknowledged for that. So with everything, we're definitely going to talk about the interview that really generated and fueled this wonderful meeting. But first and foremost, I want to say thank you for all the work that you've put in. And of course, congratulations to all your success. I know you've moved on to other chapters and other great ventures, but for the time being, from this humble fan, Neg Saint Louis, Neg Haiti, for everything that you represented for my generation as Kompa fans all over the world. Thank you. And of course, welcome to the Awaken the Awesome podcast. It's a pleasure to have you, man.
Oh my God, that was awesome. I guess I couldn't have make a better presentation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Franchement, ça touche ma pile. It's been a while, honestly, que si fait interview comme ça. Pas bien que I've been really out in the business for the last 4 years. It's been a while, and but thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Seriously. But really, the one thing, because people need to understand, the entire thing that generated this. Of course, first and foremost, we have to thank Jeff Policard, for connecting us.
Definitely.
It's one of those
Yes.
great things. That's why I tell people, guys, network. You never know what doors and opportunities might be able to open up for you down the road. So whether it's through a podcast or writing a book or launching a business, cater to those relationships, because this is how you make great connections happen. So Jeff,
Definitely.
thanks for this connection. But people need to hear this. First and foremost, the reason why this happens, because over the course of the past few months, of course, everybody being on lockdown, and we're just listening to, Kompa, which is the traditional Haitian music for those of us not in the know. And however, through the randomness of YouTube, a video of a very, very powerful interview that you gave on the Giveaway radio show.
Yeah.
And it was basically, just you sitting down, and we're used to these, right? Okay, what's next? What's next on their docket? Okay, the band broke up. So what happened? Give us the juicy details. That's
Yeah.
fine. But for me, I don't know why. It's one of those random things that makes you pause. And I hear a guy not just talking about how much they've achieved, but also a guy coming at it from perspective of a businessman, coming at it from the perspective of a father, of a husband, someone who's had to sacrifice, put in the work, put in the grind, chase your dream, achieve your dream, walk away from your dream, break friendships, so many layers. And
Yeah.
it was such a powerful interview. And again, it was something that really touched me, because a lot of times people keep talking about, oh, success must be so great, success. And that's how I want to open it, Karlo. In your experience, success has a cost, doesn't it?
Definitely, definitely, and I mean it's everything you do. See, will definitely have a cost, and it's how much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to take in? At the end of the day, when you achieve that success, because once you achieve it, you have to maintain it, and maintaining it also carries a big price tag. And I realized that when my kids were born, et réalisé que the big price tag would be for me not be around during the most important times, the most important moments, share great moments with them. And to tell the truth, before you have kids, you will never know, like I would never talk the way I'm talking now, but the minute the kids, were born, I became a different person. So I saw things through different lenses, and I started interpreting life, differently. And I started seeing, my career differently, just for the simple fact that, the great moments that I would spend with them, I would have, I would be traveling all the time. Tu vois? And it really hit me when my daughter was born on December 25th.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, so she's a Christmas baby. And at that time, I was on stage about to perform in Miami. And it wasn't planned at all, because normalement she was supposed to be born on 27th, 28th,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. So I was like, you know what, let me just play this quick gig, and then by the 26th, I catch the first flight, go back to New Jersey, and then be with my wife at the hospital and wait, for my daughter. But you know what, she had her own plans. God had her, his own plans, and
Mm-hmm.
she came out on December 25th, and that
Oh boy.
really knocked me. It was a sense of reality where I was like, okay, so every December, on the 25th, I'm not going to be around, for her birthday.
Because that's
So
the thing, right?
that's
Because you're one
yeah,
of the hottest bands ever. So you're always playing a Christmas
exactly.
gig. You're always playing a New Year's Eve gig somewhere.
Exactly. So, bagay sa te komanse a vin, te komanse a pale nan tet mwen. Other things was the fact that, my son, for example, Monsieur, comme si, he's like he's a soccer player, and I always want to watch his game. He actually got selected to play for the MLS team here, Inter Miami, last year.
Nice.
Yeah, so he got scouted by Inter Miami. So this is his second year playing, MLS soccer. So he's on his way, hopefully, to become pro. And I started, I put him in soccer since he was 3, because me même son passionné de football.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we met the petit football. You never know whether or not they're going to stay. But
Obviously.
the day since the day I put him in soccer at 3, he always kept the ball with him.
Mm-hmm.
He never let go of the ball, and so he's passionate also. And me as a passionate dad also, it meant a lot for me to be in his trainings. It meant a lot for me to be in his games, to watch him play, to watch him become the player that he is right now, where now he's actually playing for a professional academy league. So, tout bagay sa yo comme si, vin accumulé, puis ensuite, fon pa bay tet nou manti, it's not conducive to a marriage life. Kote ke, of course you're going to have a lot of issues, in your marriage for the simple fact that you're not around, and my wife, works hard, and I'm always on the road, you leave her with two kids, and it's tough. It's taxing on her. I could not ask her to do all of that. So again, I think all of this, piled up together, and I just decided that, I started flirting with the idea of leaving, although I didn't want to leave because I had the commitment with the guys. I didn't want to be the one to break up the band just because, my selfish reasons, supposedly. I mean, people call it selfish reasons. So I still stuck it in, but I was still, I was in and out. I was like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I guess the guys felt that also. But when Michael actually decided to leave permanently because he had his own issues, I was like, you know what, this is the opportunity for me to just go do something else where I can be more stable, where I can have more of a stable life, at home. And that's what I decided to do. So, I mean, Richaud was talking to me so that we could, to continue CARIMI. If you notice, when CARIMI broke up, we had a rendition of Patrick Saint-Éloi, Qui fait. It was just me and Richaud. So we were actually talking to continue CARIMI. But when I sat down and really thought about it, and I remember my son came to my room one day and he's like, so you going back to the music thing and be on the road again? And that's when I decided, I called Richaud. I'm like, Richaud, you know what? You can do your own thing. Do you? I'm done. I think I'm going to go and do something else because I had other options also. And he said, yo, come on, I can't continue CARIMI without you because it's the name and this and that. Like, listen, just, change the name, do what you got to do your own band. And that's how Richaud, did Kai. And if you notice, Kai only has one keyboard player. We're supposed to be two, me and Ticlaude, because I'm the one that actually brought Ticlaude in because we were going to continue with the project. So I called Ticlaude. I was like, listen, Ticlaude, we're gonna continue with CARIMI. Do you want to be part of it? And this and that. And Ticlaude accepted. And then I was like, all right, so me and you, we're going to be on the keys. Richaud is going to be up front, stuff like that. But I decided to at the last minute, I decided to just stop. And then now you only see Ticlaude. That's why you don't have two keyboard players. You only have one keyboard player in Kai. Because I just pulled the plug at the last minute. I told Richaud, you know what, I appreciate it, man. Only love. No animosity, because me and Richaud, we always got along. At a certain point, both of us, Richaud and I, could not work with Michael anymore, unfortunately, just for the simple fact that he had his own issues. I'm not going to get into his issues, but he it's just professionally, we just couldn't work with him anymore. And he felt that also. Michael felt that, and I guess that's the reason why he also left, because he felt that at a certain point, to a certain extent, we just could not work with him anymore.
That says a lot, doesn't it? In regards to, that's the thing, because from the history, from someone from the outside looking in, and I want you to speak on that because it takes a lot. It takes a very deep, intimate level, not just a friendship, but commitment, to commit all three of you to this dream that, we are going to be the most revolutionary, like we are going to redefine Kompa as it is, and that is a huge gamble to take on your dream. But at the same time, you're also putting a lot of things in play. You're putting your friendships, because again, you talked about this, there's a difference between a hobby and a business, and that can be testy at times. So how can we not, for those of us, like, getting into the game of entrepreneurship, not just, whether in the music business, but entrepreneurship and trying to build something together with the right team, what can you teach us about, surrounding yourself with the right people?
Well, the thing is, I guess surrounding yourself with the right people is one thing. Because listen, my team in CARIMI, we're the right people. But I think, things started changing when it really became a business. When we realized, oh my God, it's not a hobby anymore. We're actually doing this for real. We're actually making money doing this. It's a business. And I also think that once we got married, also, I think a lot of priorities kind of changed. And we started being a little bit less tolerant of certain things. And I think it has to do with having a family and kids, and it's just the atmosphere totally changed once you started. You had a family, and then you had a business that you actually had to manage, and it's not just comme si n'a fait musique just pour faire musique,
For sure.
So you do have the right team in place, you do have the right people, but I guess once the mindset totally shift, and we just couldn't agree on certain things, and that's when the business became in jeopardy, just for the simple fact that I guess our egos didn't help either.
Okay.
And all of us have big egos,
I guess you have to just to push forward, with such
yeah,
having so big dreams. You have to
you
have a
have
certain
to.
level of confidence in yourself.
Yeah, but I think not putting a check on the ego also can actually make things really get worse. So I think you have to have a good balance in your ego also,
Mm.
because you pas quitter pour l'autre, and I think that was one of the biggest issues, especially on Michael's end. I think he really had to be a little bit more emotionally intelligent, and I think that's very important in everything in life. Your emotional intelligence, and I think we lacked emotional intelligence. Because dans tout business, qui pa entendre you and stuff like that. But I think if you have that emotional intelligence and then you sit back and then you realize that you have a business that's actually making money, and there are certain ways that parce que at the end of the day, I'm an owner of a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could have put measures in place where even if I'm not here, we actually have someone that can actually perform the job that I was performing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as an owner, I give my backup the way I'm supposed to give it, and that goes for the other members, as owners, right? We don't have to be at the forefront all the time. If there are issues, things change in life, dynamics change. We could have easily taken certain measures to continue with the business, because at the end of the day, the name CARIMI is big and it was huge. So I think losing that name, right, because of egos and because of lack of emotional intelligence, I think to me it was the worst thing that could have happened,
Okay.
because we could have easily managed the business, even though it's not only the three of us in the forefront. But at the end of the day, when you look at bands, for example, like Topicana, it's not the ones that were there 30 years ago that are still there, right?
For sure.
So there's a way that we could have set up the business where we can still benefit from the business, but without having to be every single day actively managing the ins and outs of the business. When you look at
There
Bill
you
Gates,
go.
for example, for Microsoft, he's not there. He has other people managing it, but everybody knows it's Bill Gates' company, right? So I think again, a lack of emotional intelligence, our egos made it happen. And me, again, I saw the cracks, and I think because of the cracks that I saw in the business as a whole, and the fact that I was like, what, if I have to lose something, I'm going to lose my business. I'm not going to lose my family. And I think that's what pushed me to actually leave the business and concentrate more on the family, and be in an environment or where it can be stable for me,
Yeah.
and that's what I chose.
I really applaud you for that, because when I heard you say that, and it's not even remotely comparable, but I remember at some point in a past life, I had a job. Basically, I was on the road a lot, and I was just like putting in, massive hours, the entire corporate shtick, and you
Mm-hmm.
come to a point where you realize that, yeah, bank account is nice, but your marriage is suffering. You're not seeing your kids,
Exactly.
and eventually they're
Exactly.
old enough. Kids are not dumb. Kids are old enough to notice, and when they tell
Exactly.
you something like you're still working, you take that into account and you dial that in. And when I heard when I heard you talk about it in regards to whether you being on the road and having again to justify to your wife, well, I got to be on the road, or having to again rationalize with yourself, like, okay, I got to be away from my kids because I have this gig, right? People are paying, the fans and everything. How long until that just boils over, and then what, you have to make a choice. And I
Exactly.
can't even compare that to you having put in so much work, so much sweat equity. Again,
Yeah.
you caring about your fans, because Kaimi was always big about that, about the fans. Like, we got
Oh,
to show
yeah.
up.
We were important about
And
it. We that was important to us.
just
Yeah.
having to just wake up one day, like, you know what? I got to let go. And that's a great perspective for you to teach us. Like, listen, you may love something, but if it's hurting you, at some point you have to decide, okay, it's best to walk
It
away.
hurts me, but I think the fact that I feel that it would probably hurt my kids even more.
Mm-hmm.
I rather sacrifice, my dreams just to be with my kids and give them that dream where, they have, they had that, all these great times with their parents. You see what I'm saying? Because at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, it will affect the kids psychologically if both parents are not, with them, in great moments. When my son is graduating middle school, for example, my daughter's graduating from kindergarten, for example. My kid, won a championship in soccer, playing, a competition. I think these moments are great, and especially if I want to build, my son's character, if I want to, instill discipline in my kids and stuff like that, and again, I'm not taking anything away from my wife. I'm sure she would have done, tremendous, great job. But I think if both of us together do it, I think it puts, it puts a stamp on, the kids, saying that, we were both there for you, and put that example for them actually when they have their kids also, to always be there, to always be around. So I think it was based on, these things that I just decided to just, take a step back and just do, something else, in another space where I know I could be around.
There you go. There you go. So it's important, again, for all the people listening, because again, we are, trying to encourage people, again, to take chances and make the necessary sacrifices, put in the work, but always remember, stay true to your values. And that's what I've heard from you. Basically, you have to realize what's important for you, and your values for you are at the core, your wife and your family.
That's it. And people may not understand my decision. They might not, choose to understand my
Go on a tour. I'm sure your wife understands.
Yeah. Exactly. But me, I couldn't negotiate that. Again, at the end of the day, I reached a crossroad where I was going to lose something, right? And I would not negotiate losing my family.
For sure. And well, take us back to, to the early beginning. And if you can still, get back to those early memories, because for me, the first time I ever experienced a CARIMI was at Heaven near Taraz.
Oh my God.
Way back in the day. Like the first time I experienced my first CARIMI ever was in Heaven. And it's just like, for me, of course, IT Bang Bang was out, on the airways like way before, but the first live I ever had was there. But what does it feel like? Okay, you guys, transition from Cadence, and then you decide to launch CARIMI. And, how does one wake up, say, hey, you know what? Okay, we're going to transition from Cadence and do our own thing. But you know what? We're going to be the hottest band on the planet. What kind of internal dialogue happens there?
Honestly, let me tell you something. These things are never planned. It's just a matter of being lucky. I would say, of course, the product has to be good. But I think we had a
Stop underplaying it. You guys are talented. Come on.
No, we are, but I think if I'm telling you right now, and I remember vividly, like it was yesterday, when I was at Richard's apartment in Brooklyn, and he was putting that solo in Bang Bang. I remember it vividly, like it was yesterday, and he was like so excited, and we were like, oh my God, But honestly, we didn't think Bang Bang was gonna be the mega hit of the album. We never and that never crossed our minds. We were like, yeah, it's a nice song. We were excited because at the time, it was in 1990. I believe we did the song in 1999, maybe. Because Richard, at the time I was at Rutgers University, Richard was at Peru College. And on weekends, Richard would come to my dorm room, and I had a nice little setup. I was using Logic Silver at the time. So Richard would come on Fridays, to my dorm room. Spend the weekend in the dorm, and then we would record the album. That's how we recorded Bang Bang, the album Bang Bang. I remember Chagrin Criminel, I wrote it while my roommate was sleeping, next, I would
grind.
The bed was, next to me, and then I had to put my headphones in, and I was recording Chagrin Criminel, like I was putting the chords together for Chagrin Criminel. I remember it like it was yesterday. So I was in a dorm room, a sophomore in college, when I was recording this album. And Richard, came every weekend, like I said, to record the album. But we, again, we were just putting just a couple of music together, on an album, and we're like, let's just put it out. But we had no idea that this thing was gonna hit, like was gonna be so popular. We had no idea, honestly.
How does it feel to see the airwaves, the DJs, the fans, people just blasting it on the radio, man? How does it feel to hear your song, man?
It honestly is something that you can't even explain. I remember one of the biggest concerts that I had was in Bercy. One of the biggest stages that we played in was Bercy, because it's stages when you play in France, right? CARIMI did Zénith, we did Bercy. Our next level was going to be the French Stadium, right? Because that's how you do it. It's Zénith, Bercy, and then hopefully the Stade de France. So we reached the Bercy level, and then we broke up. I'm sure we would have reached Stade de France level. That was where we were going at. And that was one of the biggest stages that I played on, and it was just I can't explain it. It's ineffable, like
thousands of people just screaming your song.
That you wrote in your dorm room, and then you see people going crazy over it. I remember the first time we went to Martinique. Literally, people came to our hotel, literally crying when they saw us, like literally shedding tears. And that's something that when I played in another big stage that we played in was in France, Olympia, right? It's not a big stage, but it's a more prestigious stage, right? Yeah, listen, man, the artists that I was listening growing up were involved. When we saw the show for the well, no, definitely Aznavour played in Olympia, all the big greats, but I had Frankie Vincent actually kneel down in front of me saying "Vous êtes des dieux." Like, I'll never forget that. Frankie Vincent, like I grew up listening to Frankie Vincent, when I was a kid, and this guy was actually on his knees was telling me "Vous êtes des dieux." And I had comment il s'appelle encore? The guy that played is it pas Tony Chasseur? What's his name? Tu me manques. What's his name?
Haridi Boula?
Haridi Boula came up to me. He's like, "Can I have your autograph?" I'm like, "No, we're gonna exchange autographs." So ce que j'ai fait, I took a T-shirt, I wrote my name, and then he took a T-shirt and he wrote his name, and we exchanged autographs. But Haridi Boula came to me to ask me my autograph. I'm talking a guy like I grew up listening.
You grew up on him.
Tu comprends? Eric Virgal sat next to me in an airplane saying how he wrote a song because of Bang Bang. Bang Bang inspired him to write a song. So I mean, it's just amazing, the level that we're at, and God just really blessed us, and we were able to have this dream.
And you said something really important that people cannot shy away from. Listen, yeah, sure, you can make that one hit. You can make that one big sale. You can write that one great lyric, make that viral video on YouTube. But Karlo, you definitely know this is better than I do. Consistency is key. It's the one thing to make a hit, to make it to the top, but staying there. Because you guys put in 2 decades of a really long, arduous, but successful career. Yeah. That doesn't come easy. That doesn't come by accident.
Well, I think it's about catering to your audience and know what they want, and also discipline, and we were big in discipline. We were big in terms of, always there, for rehearsal. We were big on, always be on time for performances. We were big on, just putting up a show for the fans, because ultimately that's what they paid their money for, and we were big on that. So always catering to, the person paying to see you, always catering to their needs. I think that was the most important thing, and I think we succeeded in doing that. And again, consistency in terms of producing great songs, and that happens by just being disciplined in terms of what you do, not on stage but off stage. Meaning always be on your game, writing songs, and I can have 20 versions of the same song. If it doesn't give me the goosebumps that I'm looking for, then it's not it. And just be open to criticism, and if people tell you that they don't like certain things, you listen to your audience, and you tailor your product based on the demand of the audience.
See, there you go. Again, it's all about, just discipline. And that's something I'm really big on, whether it's losing weight, whether it's, again, having a successful career, as a really chart topping band, writing a book, or again, just putting in the work, just showing up on time for work, damn it. You really need to be disciplined.
Laisse-moi te dire quelque chose. One thing that I used to tell my son every time he steps on a field, at the time he was playing for PSG in Miami. And I told him, listen, act like a professional. They'll treat you like a professional. And I always give him that same spiel before he leaves the car. I said, listen, act like a professional. They'll treat you like a professional. And I say, always play your best, because you don't know who's watching. right?
There you go.
And that same year, there was a scout from Inter Miami that was watching all of his games. You see what I'm saying?
You never know
But
who's watching.
you never know who's watching. And the thing is, what's it's not even about what I said, but it's about that he actually listened and he executed, right? And they saw him play. They saw him, score a lot of goals. They saw him, play his best soccer. Even when he was losing, he was trying to play his best soccer. At the end of the day, they called him the last day of tryouts for Inter Miami, right? Because they saw him the week before. A scout saw him, and then they called Inter Miami, like, listen, you got to watch this kid. And then they called me. They're like, we want him to try out. Listen, the day he tried out, this guy scored 6 goals.
Wow.
Like he was scoring goals like I never. And again, I'm not saying that because he's my son, but the first 10 minutes, he was, he wasn't that good. I was like, oh man, that's it, it's over. But once he got comfortable playing with these other kids, because mind you, they put you on the field with a bunch of other kids that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Once he got comfortable after these 10 minutes, this guy was just, extraordinary. And then they called him out, to be part of the team. And again, it speaks volumes in terms of, his discipline, in terms of, him listening to, the old folks, because you always have to listen to, Munkipi Paso and who knows better, who had the experience or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's about discipline. And I always told him, you don't know who's watching, so always be at your best. And I think with us, we always wanted to be at our best, even if we had just like 10 people like on the floor. We have to be on our best because you don't know who's watching. And a lot of times we don't know who's watching, and we would get called by, a promoter in friggin', some country in Europe, just for the simple fact that we give a hell of a show, somewhere in New York City, for example. You see what I'm saying? So you perform your best because you don't know who's watching. So always be at your best. That's it.
And I'm going to flip it on you for 2 seconds, because we talk about consistency always being at your best, but sometimes, and this is unfortunately, because I read a book, I love this quote, can you stand to be blessed? And what the author was saying was like, never become too full of yourself. So you talked about having huge egos, but there's also that very fine line you have to draw where you have to keep your ego in check and not be too full of yourself that you're not willing to grow and be humble. And I was wondering if you could help us navigate through that for those of us who are overachievers and we're free. It's like, okay, I'm the shiznit, it's like, hey, I'm CARIMI. It's like, I'm on top of the world. But, there's always someone hungrier than you who's just about ready to take over. And how can we always navigate and keep ourselves in check?
Well, and I think that's the whole point of competition, right? Is to always put you in check, always keep you on your toes. And I think the fact that we had other bands, like T-Vice, like Criolla, like Harmonique, like all these other bands kept us on our toes because they saw us as CARIMI. We have to not dethrone them, but we have to, be as good as these guys, right? And they were actually doing it, and these bands are just very, very talented musicians, coming out with great songs. So that kept us on our toes where we're like, listen, we can't just, just sit in our rows and be like, we have it made, we're CARIMI, we're not gonna work anymore. But that's when reality will hit, and you'll see, your crowd numbers starting to decrease. Just for the simple fact that you always have to kind of innovate. Also, you can't just give the fans the same thing over and over again. So that always keeps you on your toes. So honestly, you really don't have the time to just be passive. And if you want to maintain a successful business, you can't just be passive and say, okay, you know what, I've made it, it's done, it's a done deal. No one can come and dethrone me, because it's not true. Music is very, it's a business where competition can just, kick you off, that throne, in a heartbeat, just for the simple fact that, people change certain music that they like, certain people that liked you today may not like you tomorrow, or people, that, would come to your performances, they have their priorities change. For example, they don't come to your performances anymore because they have other things to do. So you always have to keep working on being innovative and being new so that you can cater to other audience and always try to come with, to have new audience, right? So you really don't have the time to just be passive, and sit back and relax. You'll always be kept on your toes in that business. And I think that goes for any business anyways. If you're talking about Apple, for example, they always have to be innovative. You'll have to come up with new products because, if you don't, then someone else is going to dethrone you and take that, and next thing you know, another company is going to be that $2 trillion company, and, look at Amazon. You have to innovate. You can't just be, a one-trick pony. You always have to continue and put out new products.
Wow. And I wanted to throw this one by you for a quick second, because the thing is, with the reality of, how I'm trying to formulate this question properly. Well, when you are so achieved, and how do you, because again, what I really enjoyed about when you guys came out, it was, and I told Jeff this off the air when we were just before connecting, I appreciated what you guys did, because Kompa, up to that point, until you guys showed up, you guys came out with a fresh, innovative, unheard of sound that was genuinely you. And what I appreciate about that is because, wow, you can be the biggest Kompa fan, but you have never heard anything like this. And because a lot of people always want to innovate by copying or emulating somebody else. But how do we, because a lot of people that listen to us are always having that struggle, because I promote that a lot. Just do you. Don't worry about the other guy. Just be worried about being the best you that you can. And I was wondering if you could speak on that, about not always looking over your shoulder, looking what the neighbor's doing. Just how do you cater to your own yard and cater to your own awesomeness and just do you? How can we center ourselves and just focus on us?
So good question. So the secret sauce to that first album was the thing behind it was the fact that I had left Haiti for, I would say, like a good 2-3 years before that prior, right? Mm-hmm. And honestly, during my my college years and stuff like that, I was totally disconnected to the Haitian culture, totally disconnected. So I was just consuming other music, right? I didn't listen to Kompa at all. And I would say it was kind of the same experience for virtuoso. And I think that gave us a new approach to composing Kompa, right? Just with the simple fact that, it's not like, we were not listening to music, different music when we were in Haiti, but we were exclusively listening, for example, Antilles, different Kompa. At the time it was really Antilles that we were listening to.
A lot.
But a lot. But being in the States where, I was, in a dorm room for months and months and months and just consuming, rock, consuming hip hop, consuming, you name it, all types of music. And the minute I sit down now to write music, I had the influences of all, the genres that I was listening to. And I think that was the secret sauce of Bang Bang, that album, because it was not a traditional, like a regular, approach of Kompa.
No, it wasn't.
The chords that we were choosing for songs and stuff like that, it wasn't traditional, Kompa chords and stuff like that. So, and I think we definitely influenced, a whole generation in terms of the way they would write music afterwards. And I think that was the reason okay, so you can see it, for example, in our third album, that the way we compose music we were kind of catering more to the fans now. It wasn't the same as the first, just because now we were like, all right, we're so consumed in the Haitian culture. We're so consumed in Kompa. That's all we were listening to. We became a little bit more traditional. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to the first album where, again, we were not looking, over our shoulders. I didn't care what people thought of my music. I was just composing. I was just writing, man. Like, I didn't care if people didn't, thought that, Shaggy Camino was horrible. I didn't care if people thought that IPA was horrible, for example. I was just writing music, man. And I think that was the secret sauce to our success. People was like, what is this? It's not traditional. It's not what we used to listen to. What is that? So, and I think that was definitely the key to the success of that album.
when you start making music for you, that
For
is like again
yourself.
the holy grail for
That's
a
it.
holy
For
grail of any
yourself.
artist,
Yeah,
just for
that's it.
yourself.
For yourself.
Man,
For yourself. That's it.
that's
And
really
that was
encouraging.
definitely. And the minute I started writing less of hits, me personally, I think the minute I tried to cater to a specific audience, I was like, you know what? I gotta write that hit. I gotta do this. But when I didn't care,
Because there is that pressure.
there is that pressure at a certain time. There's definitely that pressure. Um, and if it wasn't, that specific formula, I was like, oh no, it's not that formula. I gotta write it the way these guys, because there's competition now. We have to. And I think now we were lost, in the sea of the same traditional genres. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And I think that took away from originality, if you like to say so. But I mean, it didn't take away from the success of the other albums. But honestly, I think that took a little bit. It chipped a little bit, of our original, like CARIMI, the Bang Bang, or um the um the Muesu album, the Por Favor, because that second
Dude,
album
you're sending me
was
back
still,
now.
yeah, I mean that second album was still that original. But once you start going to the third album, it was a little bit. Of course, we would have songs like Buzz that was still out there.
Hmm.
We still had tried to stay true to to the way we made music. But you can see, like, throughout the album also, you'll find where you're like, all right, yeah, I can see where they were trying to cater to a specific audience, to be in that compa world where they're trying to compete with other people.
And you know what? I just want to pivot there for like 2 seconds because I'm not going to leave this one out. And that's something you've been very vocal about in regards to,
Yeah.
the importance of having a strong foundation within your couple. Because you said that a lot of this journey would not have been possible without the backbone of your spouse. And a lot of people take that for granted because you think that it's all about fame and fortune and like, yeah, but family and the foundation that has to be your relationship has to be at the core. And for anybody trying to dip their toes into this wonderful world of hey music business, yeah, you need to have what does it say about the strength of a relationship? What are the red flags we need to watch out for? What can you tell us?
Um, Honestly, it's I was blessed, man. I was fortunate to have someone that believed in me, and to have someone that didn't listen to all the gossips that was out there, especially after Karimi broke up, because
Haitian gossip can be mean,
yeah,
man.
there was a bunch of rumors, why Karimi broke up, because Karlo did this with Michael's wife, when it was total BS, and knowing me is something that I would never. That's a line I would have never crossed, right? And it goes to show you, the degree of fake news that's out there, and people actually believe it. Even till this day, after 4 years, people are still asking me, "Is it true what I heard?" I'm like, "Come on, dude, seriously." Even after Michael denied it, they're still saying, "Oh no, it's because Michael doesn't want to say that he did." So
Wow.
it's sad, and I think also that's the other reason why I decided to stop, music also, is because I'm like, who am I fighting for? Why am I fight? Why am I going to fight for, people who are, in a second, after everything you did, for the flag, everything you did for your culture, in a heartbeat, they can just throw you and be like, to be devoured, just to put your name out there, and try to, sal no and stuff like that, so that to me left a really a bitter taste in my mouth. But what to go back to your question is, I was lucky enough to have a wife that did not believe none of that stuff. She knows me, she knows who I am, she knows my character. She knows what I would do and what I would not do, right? And she knows that certain lines I would not cross. And I think that was important. And even her, the minute I decided to stop, she was like, "Listen, do what you got to do. If that's your decision, because she didn't pressure me. She was like, if that's your decision, that's really what you want to do, I'll support you. To do, to take that decision, and that's what I did. And at
It's
the
a
end of the
very
day,
powerful communication there. You guys have a very strong unit.
oh yeah, and because she suffered a lot from me not being around. You know, after 15, 16 years, I I actually, in 2006 was the first time I actually spent a holiday, with my family, right? Because my family is, my wife's family is big on spending holidays together.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go to our beach house in Haiti. Usually on the 22nd, we'll have like a big Christmas dinner, for example, and we're all by the beach and stuff like that. And then we'll still stay there until the 31st, or and we're big like that. And they've always been doing it, but without me.
Because you're on the road,
So
you got a
because I'm on the
gig.
road, and my wife was always kind of sad because all of her siblings, I have their spouses with them and stuff like that, the other friends, but I'm the one that's on the road. So
Carlo has a show. Carlo has a gig.
exactly.
Carlo's in Miami. Carlo's at Impulse. It's like,
Right.
that's
So
gotta be hard, man.
it was tough. It was tough. So, once I did it in 2016, I was like, wow, that was out. I was missing a lot. And I realized how happy they were, how happy my in-laws were, how happy my kids were. I wouldn't trade that for the world, man. I wouldn't trade that at all. So, I mean, the minute I stopped, I didn't look back. And again, my wife was really a great support system for me to actually make that transition from my music life to my professional life now, where I'm actually, in a total different field from music. So I was able to make that transition, and I'm happy.
That's good. And because again, that you had to put in, elite efforts to reach elite status. And just like this thing happens, like we're just going to take athletes, professional athletes as an example. Once your career ends, because a lot of people are never ready for that transition.
Right.
There's always that mistake. Well, not mistake. It's a choice. I believe it's a choice. Some people go all in and have no backup plan. But
Right.
from your different interactions, and again, the different comments that you made, you had, as you like to say, options. And what does that say to people, who it's important to have a plan B, because a lot of people say like, oh, no plan B, I'm going all in and plan A and everything is just going to work. But sometimes in that situation, when you have to walk away, you're a perfect example. Like, okay, I was running a chart topping band, but you know what? Walked away from it. But hey, I got options. What does that say to people? How can we coach them? Make the right decisions, or be ready. You never know.
You never know. And there's something that I tell my son all the time, right? He's a passionate for soccer, but I tell, listen, you always have to have another card in your pocket. You're one injury away from never playing soccer, right? And I told him that. And me personally, I was like, I always have to have a card, another ace in my pocket, because the reality of music, it's great. I love it. And I wouldn't take anything 1 minute away from the experience that I had. But the reality is, music is a young man's game, and at a certain point in time, we're getting old, right? Yes, you can always perform, but I didn't see myself at 60 performing, every night. Right. And remember, we are not, our business is not structured where we can actually just make money and live off of royalties, for example, right?
No, you can't.
And I think also the way the business is right now with the internet, it's la double tranchant, where it's good and it's bad. Where an album comes out, I can literally listen to the album on YouTube for free the next day, right? So to me, in terms of business model, for us, we're not structured. It's not something that I would want to stay in, right? Just for the simple fact that the business model is not ripe to just live off your royalties. If, for example, we had an audience where we had millions and millions of audience, listening to our music, online, and we were making money off streams and what have you, then it would probably be a different ballgame, right? For example, you have Justin Bieber, for example, making like $50,000 a day, for example, just through streams, right? That's perfect, but we don't have that audience base, right?
We don't have that.
And our thing is, to make money, you have to be on the road and perform every weekend.
So basically, the revenue mostly comes from touring.
From touring, that's it. The revenue comes from touring, and I don't see myself at 60, 65 touring. Right. And I always had that in the back of my mind. And I told myself, I always, want to have another ace in my, in my pocket, where, if one day, I not necessarily have to leave the band, but if I want someone else to replace me, but I still keep my stake, my ownership in the business, but I want to do something else where I want to be a little bit more stable, then I would be able to do it, obviously.
Sure, it can offset the process. You don't have to always be at the keyboard all the time.
Exactly. And that was the plan, but I guess, other people didn't like that idea. They always wanted me to be there because it was CARIMI, if you're not there, that means, so me, I believe a lot in education, and that was always one of my ace, right? When I was in CARIMI, when we first started, when I graduated in college in 2001, and we started performing, I believe it was like late 2001, early 2002. I pursued a master's in public policy, right? For 2 years, I was traveling, I was on the road, but I made sure I told my manager that, listen, I don't care what you do. By Monday morning, the latest 6, 7 a.m., I want to be in New York, because I have my graduate school classes, at 4 or 5 p.m. in the evening, every day.
So I don't care what you do, make sure the bookings do not interfere with my
Exactly.
classes.
Exactly. So within 2 years, I did get my master's in public policy. I was actually flirting with going to law school, but I ended up getting a second master's in health informatics and data analytics, just because I just love the healthcare space. I just love that space. And I've had, I spoke to a couple of lawyers, and they just didn't like their experience, from law school and stuff like. So that totally changed my idea of law. But
Let's just table that for a second.
Because I was actually really, really studying the LSATs and stuff like that, and they were like, "Listen, dude, if I had to do it all over again, I don't think I would have gone to law school." So. But again, healthcare was another space that I really enjoyed and stuff like. So I decided to get my second master's in data analytics, and I know analytics is definitely the future, is the wave of the future. And again, it was just about. Oh, by the way, I was a PhD candidate in political science, but I decided to. So when I was doing my master's in public policy, so I decided to stop at the master's level, and because I really didn't like the professors, and I didn't want to go in academia anymore. So that's when I stopped at the master's level. I took my master's in public policy, and then I got my second master's in health informatics. So right now I'm actually flirting with the idea of getting an MBA. I don't know yet, but to me, what I'm saying is, to me, education is key. And I think you always have different aces in your car, because you never know what kind of curveball life is going to throw at you, and you always have to be ready. And that's what I tell my son.
I'm high-fiving you right now. I swear, man. Definitely. It's something that people really need to, just, dial in. Like, listen, you can be, again, someone with as much success as you have, with as much track record as you have. What I'm hearing from you is that, yeah, okay, this dream, okay, it's over. Okay, we close that chapter. Doesn't mean that, I've still got a lot of mileage left, and, we can explore other opportunities, and it's totally fine. It's in your hands.
That's it. And listen, even like right now, I'm working on a song for a popular band. I won't say who it is, but when the song comes out, you'll see. You'll know. I wrote a song on Creola's album last year, "À Toi." So it's like I'm still producing music. It's not like I stopped totally, right? But I'm mainly in the studio now, as opposed to being on stage. So now a band wants me to produce a song for them. I'm actually thinking of coming out with a song myself, maybe in 2 months. So right now I'm just doing it as a hobby, not necessarily as where it is a career anymore, right? So I took a step back. And I can still do music, right? I don't have to do it at the level that I was doing it in, but music is a passion of mine, and I'm still going to pursue it. But now, again, I'd rather do other things where I know, for example, I don't mind being in an office, when I'm 65 or even 70, but I wouldn't want to be on stage when I'm 65 or 70. You know what I'm saying?
See, you're very clear, and that's something that came off from the interview, and it's something that's still coming off there. You're very self-aware, and that comes with a lot of self-assuredness. So you know who you are. You're not just dilly-dallying in regards to, maybe I should try this, maybe I should. No, you're very aware of the fact, okay, this is what I wanted. I got that. I don't want this anymore. We're moving on, and I'm not looking over my shoulder. And you know what? We're just looking forward. And you need to be comfortable with that. And a lot of people wrestle with that. They're like, is this what I want? Is this what I want? But no, you are very self-assured.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm gonna be totally 100 with you right now. Since 2016, the minute I said I'm done, I never looked back. I never regretted my decision. Actually, I enjoyed my decision till this day. The fact that I can be home right now with my family. I could just take my car, go in the office. Well, right now, all of us working remotely anyways, but last year, for example, I just took my car, go in my office, and then come back, having dinner with the family, help my kids do their homework and stuff like that. And to me, that was important. And then on weekends, for example, last week, we were in Marco Island, we're at the beach, stuff like that, spending time with the kids. And the kids are going to remember these things, and I did not want to take that away from them. I did not want to take that experience away from them. And I think it would have been selfish on my end, to take that away from them and not, because at the end of the day, they didn't ask to be born. And I think the minute that I put them in this world, I have to give them the best experience of parenting, as much as possible.
Because you don't want to wake up. Yeah, my dad was always on the road. My dad was always on the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, he provided for us, but he was never around.
He was never around. Yep.
That carries a lot of weight. And, again, it's going back to our values. What makes us us, and what are we willing to suffer for, and what are we no longer willing to tolerate? And that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of personal truth. And that definitely speaks highly of your character and of your courageous being, because even throughout all your creativity and that just one interview and this wonderful conversation, Karlo, I can't congratulate you enough for all that you've achieved and all that you stand for as a man, as a husband, as a dedicated father, and as a talented musician, and everything that you've achieved so far. Again, maybe we'll see you with a PhD down the road. Who knows? Who knows? But, I'm just, again, just throwing out there in the universe. You never know what the universe holds. But
You never know. Maybe.
From my humble basement in Canada, man. Again, I don't want to keep you up too late because, again, you've been generous enough with your time. I'm going to be very respectful of the clock. But, man, first of all, I just want to thank you for this wonderful time and insight. It was definitely eye-opening. Again, from the perspective of a fan, again, like I said, I'm not the biggest one. I don't have all your albums. Okay, fine. I said it. I don't have all your albums, no, but I'm a respectful. You can
listen to them on YouTube for free. Trust me.
But we're kidding. But seriously, you definitely, with T-Vice, with Mickey, with CARIMI is definitely, part of my roster. Definitely, I've been with you guys since Cadence, and then I saw the evolution. But I'm not just like, just throwing it out there. It's really a really big honor for me to have you on this podcast, because it's definitely what we stand for, just empowerment, helping people understand that, it's important to chase your dream, but also to understand that, when your dream is costing you too much than you're willing to pay for, it's important to understand what matters to you and to maybe consider the option that, you don't have to just just swallow it. There are other decisions you can make. But I wanted to thank you for this time.
Last thing is I'm not taking away anything from other musicians that decide to stay, right? To stay in the business, because at the end of the day, that's their choice. And I applaud them. I admire them to be able to do it. But it's just me personally, on a personal basis. It's just me. I just could not be able to muster, not, be around my kids, for so long.
And we celebrate you for that. And that's something that you said. There's nothing to look back on and say with regret or rancor whatsoever. Again, and again, you've been very open about it. You wish no ill will even to your former bandmates. Lishan's still a friend, as I understand.
Yes,
we're not throwing ill will anywhere. And again, that speaks a lot again about with your character. But again, it's a real privilege and a thrill to have had you on this conversation. There is a running tradition on the podcast. The last question is always opening up the floor to the guest, whether a call to action, a kind thought, a quote, mantra, personal motivation, just a call to action, someone that can actually, for the listeners to, get a next step towards their next level, something they can wake up with tomorrow. What can we leave them?
I would say definitely be passionate, I would say if there's something that you really want to do, be obsessed, right? And the minute you're obsessed with that dream, you'll make it happen.
My man.
Yep.
Karlo, it's a privilege and a thrill. I can't thank you enough. For people who want to connect with you over the interwebs, is there any particular space there that they can connect with you?
Well, I mean, on my LinkedIn, Karlo Vieux, my
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, they can definitely, and again, it's Karl with a K. I know I wrote Karlo with a C for the longest, but my real name is Karl with a K.
Mm-hmm.
So if they could just go on Karlo Vieux on LinkedIn, they can definitely connect with me.
I'll link it up on the blog post for the podcast once it goes live. Guys, Karlo Vieux, awesome individual, chart-topping artist, terrific individual, terrific energy, and you guys definitely know that, that's what we try to promote on the Awaken the Awesome podcast. Guys, as always, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for, following this journey. As always, you can always connect with us, awakentheawesome@gmail.com, iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Now it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Show some love. Give us some ratings, some likes. We always appreciate it. But as always, stay safe, stay sane, stay resilient, stay blessed. As always do, stay awesome. This has been another episode of the Awaken the Awesome podcast. We always love to get your feedback, so please do drop us a line via Instagram, Facebook, or email. Our email address, awakentheawesome@gmail.com. Do visit our official website at awakentheawesome.ca, where you can find our entire back catalog of episodes and incredible guests. Also, if you haven't already, please hop on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, give us a rating, and leave us a review, as this helps us tremendously in growing this podcast and spreading the word to more awesome listeners like you. We always appreciate your support, and thank you for listening. Stay awesome.